and welcome to another episode of Mac Trains. Thank you very much for joining us. This is one we've been looking forward to. This is a reaction, really, a more considered reaction to Hornby's April 2025 TT120 reveal, as they're calling it, which gives us their uncovering of all the shiny new things that we've been excitedly waiting for since our last launch. So we're getting stuck in here. We've got a couple of guests here. I'm delighted to have Chris from PeachyTT120 once more. Chris, just want to say hello.
Hey guys, I'm thoroughly looking forward to being tripped up about all the things I got wrong in my video. But enough of that. Onto our new guest.
Very good. Yeah, we have a special guest here as well. We have Garry Hall for the first time joining us on Mac Trains. And Garry won't be a stranger, I'm sure, to almost everyone watching this. His work is well known and prolific. And we asked Garry just to introduce himself and his channel a bit more than Chris, because Chris is better known to most of you. Go on, Garry.
Hello, well, my name's Garry Hall, and I've actually been involved in model railways since about 1955-56. I first got my TT trains, as it was then, which was made by Triang, when it first came out in 1957. Over the years, I did a bit with that, double O, Hornby double O gauge, N gauge. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I went back to doing TT, which obviously was the 3mm. And I built quite a lot of trains, especially with the Lincoln Locos bodies, which are 3D prints, and putting them on Triang chassis. When Hornby announced the TT120, I went down to Gaydon to see Simon Cole and the team with the display when it first came out. And I was really, really impressed with what I saw. I was a little upset, like a few people were, because the size is different to the old TT, being 2.5mm as opposed to 3mm. But nevertheless, it still looked really, really nice. So I said to myself, yes, I will get a set and I'll see how it goes. Come December that year, 2022, I received the Scotsman set and it was out of this world. It really was. I just couldn't believe the quality of it, especially for the price. And I thought, right, it is 12mm gauge. I'll try it on my track. And it ran so well. I just thought then, I probably won't have much more of this. And it only took, I think, within a week or so, and somebody else was selling one because they thought it was too small for them. And so I actually bought that, and I was probably the first person to have 2 locos and 2 sets of coaches. And one of the comments that a lot of people had been making up till then was, how strong will these be? Because they don't have tyres on the wheels. If they had tyres on, I wouldn't have bought them and I wouldn't be here now. So I was pleased when Simon Kohler made the decision at the time not to have tyres on. Well, that loco, when I put the 6 coaches behind it, it just ran as though it didn't have any. There was no difference with its running or performance. And so by then I'd already got my pre-ordering for the Easterner set. When that arrived, that was it. 3mm was out of the window. And ever since then, I've been concentrating on the TT120 and my 3mm. A lot of it's been sold, but there's still a lot to sell now. And that's where I am with the TT120. I think it's perfect.
Garry, would you mind telling the audience how many logos you now have
in TT120?
Right, a difficult one here, but I would take a guess. It's over 100. The thing is, this week, in fact, Chris might have seen this yesterday on Facebook. I put an A4 on Silver King that I'd just got yesterday, and that was enough for me to have all 34 BR green versions of the A4s.
That is, Garry, that is, not only is it bonkers, but it is also an excellent indication of your commitment to this scale.
Yes,
Because that
that's
that
good.
that doesn't include all the. I mean, obviously you've got pretty much, well, particularly the steam area. You've got a lot of that stuff, but you've made a tremendous amount out of those chassis as well, haven't you?
Yes, it didn't take me long to think about what I could do. With buying that second set, I was not really too bothered about LNER. So I decided, what can I do out of this? And at the time, Lincoln Locos was still only doing 3 mil. TT120 was still new, but I had some Corgi models which were made by Hornby, and these are die-cast models. And I had the Scotsman, the A4, and also the Peppercorn A1. The A3 was in BR Blue, and unfortunately, there's no way could you ever get the insides out of that one. But the Peppercorn A1 had quite a hollow body. So it didn't take me long to think, right, I shall get the Dremel out. I'm grinding away the die cast ends where they have the fittings for holding things together. And it fitted beautifully on an A1 chassis. From then on, I've not really stopped with all these conversions.
I think it's always the exciting stuff when I see one of your videos pop up on my YouTube feed. My is, what have you done now? You know, which new thing that nobody else has even imagined have you managed to shoehorn around an existing chassis of some kind? So it's always great, and that gives you, I think it's fair to say, probably an unparalleled acquaintance with the innards and the guts of all the existing TT120 loco stock. So,
in a way, yes, but it's all the A1 chassis and A4 as well, because they're practically identical apart from the lubricator linkage. But I've not got into any of the diesels like Chris has. Chris and one or two others, they've been inside them, obviously for fitting DCC speakers and things, but also the drive shafts and things. And touch wood, I've not had an issue with that. So with a diesel, I've not been to the innards of it, but I've certainly ground a lot of metal away with them.
Very good. Right, then let's get on with a bit of response to what we had yesterday. Because yesterday we had the big Hornby reveal. They had some exciting new stuff for us, enough to whet many an appetite, but also enough to probably cause some frustration for some people in different areas. So let's talk through that. First of all, I think both of you, if you give us in turn, and we'll start with Chris just now, the best things that you thought, right, that's outstanding. That's a brilliant move by Hornby. What have you got there, Chris?
Are we talking about the whole range that's come out rather than just item by item? Okay, well, certainly personal wins for me. The Freightliner 66, it's my favourite livery. I'm hoping to utilise that in a bit of a diorama I'm planning. But then the Terrier, which I think surprised some people, but maybe we shouldn't be surprised, because if you wind the clock back a couple of years, most of this stuff is what we were all asking for. And I think maybe sometimes people forget that it takes this long to get the ship to turn around or steer a different course away from the phases. And so the fact that we didn't have 9Fs and a whole range of other wonderful things that we all actually obviously want didn't surprise me at all. The one surprise I had, I think, was when I first found out about this this coming range, was the move to the southern sector, which is kind of sometimes always maybe unfairly considered to be the fourth sister, with LNER and LMS being the big boys. Great Western always has historically had a lot of companies make models of it. So we don't really know why. Maybe we can pontificate later, and Garry might have some theories about it. But they've gone instead down south, haven't they? And I knew about that little Normandy thing. I've seen it. I think it's a better detailed model than the 00 starter set, in my opinion. And I think it works better in this scale. Also, the wheels don't look so silly because the axles are the correct width. But it is a simplified compared to everything else that TT's come out. But then the locomotive's quite simple as well. So
Yeah.
they didn't pick a very super detailed prototype. They picked quite a simple one and quite a robust one. So I think that was quite a sensible move. I do like it. It looks fun. I think, and probably I'm assuming Garry will as well, the first job I'll do is remove the Normandy and the decals off of it and turn it into there was a BR version. There was a BR version of it running around, so that's what I'll put on Camelot. Now that Terrier though has got to be the highlight. And in my head, when I first heard about or saw the running sample, I didn't know about the liveries. I knew that what they were, but I hadn't really kind of deep dived into it. I hadn't been shown any graphics. And I was just thinking, well, that's okay. I'm just going to buy the BR one. That's all I need, you know. And then maybe not so much the Southern livery, but the Southern coaches I think look fantastic in green. But then the bright yellow one from the London to South Coast Railway. It's such a stunning looking loco that I don't know which way to go. So I've done the sensible thing, which is pre-order all of them and all the coaches, and then hopefully by the time it gets closer, because obviously you don't have to pay, but getting closer to the time, I'll make a decision about actually which ones I actually need, because I don't really think I need all of them. But at the moment, I'm undecided. And of course, Garry will repeat this, that that mindset can change over the next year. I might be attracted to doing a different layout. But yes, the Terrier is head and shoulders one of the most stunning models I think they've made so far, and it will make the 00 Terrier look what it does look like, which is a misgauged toy.
Nothing controversial there from Chris at all. So, but interestingly, you use the word need. Which one do I need? And it's always it's amazing how we bring in words to justify. The truth is we don't need any of this stuff. But what do we particularly choose to have? And that quandary over what Terrier is certainly one. And particularly the matching up then with the coaches. We'll come to the coaches later. But Garry, same question to yourself. What were the outstanding things that you picked up on from the launch yesterday, from the reveal?
Well, for me, ideally, it was the steam side of it. I don't mind diesels if they're in the steam era in BR Green, but the modern ones don't really do anything for me. So I wasn't really too interested in that, and I appreciate and I accept everybody's different, and a lot of people have grown up with those, and fair dues, it's good for them, plus it's good for the hobby. But when it comes to steam engines, I'd not really heard of the B4 to start with. I didn't really know much about steam engines as 040s. The only one that I knew of was the Lancashire and Yorkshire Pug, and so when Hornby announced it, I first of all went onto the site to get me pre-orders in, and I then went onto Google and looked up B4, and the first image that come up was the one that Chris mentioned in BR livery. Great, right? So I'd already ordered it, by the way, and I thought, right, so mine will
before
be
seeing it.
yeah, yeah. So mine will be in BR livery. But I also have the thought of, if I can get hold of a 3D pug body, I may be able to put a pug body on it, because it's got the same slide bar. Well, it hasn't got slide bars in. It's just got like a connecting rod that's just going into a slot in the cylinder, I think.
Sure.
But that will do for the Lancashire and Yorkshire one. If not, I don't mind. I could still have a BR 040, which is a real thing. So yeah. I'm happy with that.
That's good.
The Terrier now, I can say that that was mentioned by Simon Kohler in the first interview Hornby did after TT120 was launched.
Yeah.
So it'll be in early 2023, and somebody put on the question, what about a Southern Region Terrier? And he says, well, we haven't got the plans yet, but who knows, it could possibly come in the future. Some words to that effect. And strangely enough, it was only last week when Hornby put on an advert for the Terrier for limited edition for club members. I used that picture and I put it on Facebook, and I says, that would be great in TT120. And a certain Martin Weaver put, yes, that would be nice.
When you did that, I thought, you're going to get me shot. They're going to think I've told you.
I didn't know about it.
I know you didn't, but how was I going to convince them that?
Well, I use the Hornby's own paperwork and picture, and I just put that on. I just screen printed it, put that on. I said that would be nice, and I said Martin Weaver put on, yeah, it would be nice, or words to that effect. In my mind, I thought maybe that might have been some clue, so I don't going to pursue it or anything. But I thought, wait and see what this looks like, and it was. It's a brilliant little model. It is a diminutive size, and I'm hoping to see it on Saturday because I'm going down to Rails to see them, and I'm going to take some of my small SR locos, which I think will be massive compared to what that one is.
Yeah. I think that the fact that they've done the Terrier in virtually all metal, that means that although it's diminutive in size, it should still be a very capable runner, more reliable over track work, and a good puller as well. So I think that's the step up in quality from the first wave has just kept going, really, and I think that seems to be the case still. Obviously, the little Normandy is slightly different because it's designed to be a cheap loco. We don't expect that to be all metal body and all singing, all dancing. That's not what I mean. But the general releases have been, yes.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how much heavier again it is over the J50, because remember the J50 has weight inside it, but it's still a plastic body. This is all metal, and when I felt I wasn't allowed to weigh it, but when I felt the running sample down at Margate, yeah, it's quite a nice pick. I wouldn't be surprised if we're 100 grams or maybe even more. Whereas remember the J50, when I weighed it, was about 75 grams, and the 08s were around about the sort of 45 gram mark, weren't they? So yeah, I think this is going to have some. It's going to roll really well with that cordless motor, and it's spot on.
I think just to round it out for myself, just as a brief response to my own question, the Terriers are clearly the best model of what's announced in terms of new stuff. My excitement is probably at its highest for the starter set as a whole, and particularly because of the price point they hit for it. Because I think that gives a hopefully easy way in for a lot of people into the scale. I think that's the purpose. It's probably a bit of a loss leader almost to some extent. They're certainly not going to make a vast profit on them at all, if barely any, at that price point. To include the track, to include the controller, to include a new tool and 2 new pieces of rolling stock, even though it's simplified. But I think being able to say people less than 100 quid, substantially less when you go to a retailer, when you include the points discount, whatever it might be, then you are getting a tremendous value for money proposition there. And it becomes, for someone who just likes model trains, they're not fussed, they're not obsessive about one scale, and not kind of sectarian over their scale. I think that is a great little foot in the door. And so I think on that regard, I think well played, Hornby. And the fact that it looks to me, like Chris said, better quality than the 001. It's just the icing on the cake for me there. So that's my take on what I got. I love the other stuff, but I think that scent is a winner.
Like Chris, I decided to order all three, but from my point of view, it's because I love the livery of the mod. As you will know, I'm a BR man normally, but I do have a great central. I do have LNR. I've got an LBSC thing, so I will have anything on my layout as long as it's English or British steam design. I'm not into anything that looks like German, French, anything like that. And these, they just looked superb. The three different liveries look superb. And so I will run all three on my layout. Coach is a different matter. Unlike Chris, I only went for one set. I went for the green ones because to me, I thought they looked superb. I wasn't too worried about the maroon ones. The maroon, we've got BR Mark ones, we've got Stania maroons. Nearly everything the coach-wise is maroon. So to me, the green ones, and with the little word sun, because I've tried to magnify the Hornby photograph, and obviously that's probably a 001 at the moment, I don't know. But looking at it with the little word Southern Railway on it, things like that, that will be superb. And I'll run that with any of them. I don't mind. I got the full set of 4, and I'm in two minds whether I should get another 1 or 2 of the third class ones as well.
Well, I think that Terry will put it. Something that's been commented on Facebook is that someone believes that the running numbers on the BR Maroon versions of those 2-axle carriages is an Eastern region running number. I'm not sure if that's positively correct or I don't know. Garry, do you know anything about that?
No. When it comes to coach numbers and things like that, I have got no idea. With my coaches, when I renumber something like the Southern Region ones that I painted, I'll get the rail tech to make the transfers and I put S at the front, but I've got no idea whether I'm doing a Mark 1, a buffet, a brake or anything. I will just use whatever number that's there, as long as it's got an S on.
And the speed I've seen you run your locos at, you can't read them anyway.
And mine goes slow compared to some.
not compared to Greg. I think he ran his little 08 around his new layout. Yeah. And I think he gave up at 2 hours, didn't you, or something?
Not quite. I ran it round, and I think, was it speed step 7 or something like that? And it took 33 minutes to do a loop. And I reduced it to speed step 2, I think it was it an hour or 2? I can't remember now, but it was ridiculous. It was just to see how it would go. And it was great fun.
Great fun.
It was great fun. I think I love seeing a loco just crawl, because I think my memories probably of railway modelling as a kid was the sheer frustration of things constantly cutting out, and because of not like probably nothing to do with locos, my rubbish track and my lack of cleaning and all the rest of it. But it was just the sheer frustration of that, and it just wouldn't do what I wanted to do. And these things they'll do exactly what you want when you want, and that reliability is what I've always wanted in my models, and so that appeals to me with a perverse sense of pride in it. Yes, Garry.
Yeah, well, this is where a lot of people are different to me. I'm not into the DCC. I prefer DC. And when it comes to the slow running, I can fully appreciate it, but it's not for me. And when I go to shows, if there's people running trains like that, quite often I just walk away. I like to see, when I say I like to see something moving, I do like to see it at a reasonable speed. On Chris's Camelot, it was okay. It was only 4 foot by 3 foot, and all the trains were there running. But at that speed, if you put them on one of my layouts, you'd spend an hour there waiting for it to get from one end to the other. And to me, I do like to see something running, which is what you get with a lot of the public at shows. And this is where I think some private people, they can do things at home to their satisfaction, everything. But when they go to a show, I think it needs changing slightly. That's just my opinion. Going back to the late 80s and early 90s, I built an O gauge layout, which was 60 foot long. So at any one time, you had 4 trains running. So people could see something, which is what a lot of them liked. But that's my opinion.
That's the issue, or I have a similar issue with Let's Make Tracks, which I think has been a fantastic thing to promote the hobby, and it's been, the whole team have put so much effort to it, and it is a remarkable achievement. But when I saw it at Getz, the Great Leisure Train Show last year, took my lab with me, and we no, it was the year before, wasn't it? Or no, it was one of them. It was either Key Model World Live or Great Leisure Train Show. Doesn't matter. Took my lab with me. We went to it. We waited for about 25 minutes to get to be beside the layout, because it was 2 or 3 people deep. When we got to it, a train had just gone by at a reasonable speed, because it's a mainline layout. And we waited, and we waited. I'm thinking that something's going to come round soon. And we waited, and we waited, and about 10 minutes in, and I'm still waiting, and I could just see something appearing down the far end. And at that point, my son's patient gave up, and he said, "Dad, I'm off, and I want to go and look at some nice layouts that have stuff on them." And I had to tear myself away from it, because I think it's a zoom on it, or a zoom coming down down through Watford or whatever it is, or Milton Keynes. And I thought, oh, all right, I'll no doubt come across it again at another show. But that was frustrating. That was, however amazing that model is, even when they've got like 4 or 5 operators and like, I don't know, half a dozen trains running on it, there can be some big gaps, a bit like the real thing. But when you go to a model railway show, you want to be entertained, and I don't want to wait real time before a train comes through. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. And
well, with Chris's layout, because I've seen it a couple of times, and I've also taken some of my trains to run on it. With what he does on it, it's fine, and it doesn't matter that it goes slow, because it's in view all the time.
Aye.
And it, as I say, there's no problem.
Yeah. Good. Quizmaster, you need to get us back on track.
I am, yeah. I'm about to steer you back up from this, guys. I think we've gone, and I think that's valuable and interesting, but it's not really what we're here for. So
Right.
if we stick to the reaction as much as we can, because I think that's what folk will be tuning in for. Yes, Garry, before you move on.
Right. With the Terrier, the ideas were, what can you make with it? Well, there's not a lot, because it's such a small wheelbase with small wheels. But one loco that Hornby may want to look at will be this one. I don't know if we can see it there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the Great Eastern Railway J69, which has got very small wheels and quite a small wheelbase. So that could be a possibility. And then there's also this one, which is the Southern Region Dock Tank, which again has got small wheels and small wheelbase, because that was used in the docks and things. So I'm going to take these down with me on Saturday and put them against the Terrier to see how they compare. And I'm not saying it's something that I will actually do, because I've got these models, but it is a possibility that Hornby may be able to do it, because if their motor fits in that Terrier, which obviously it does, it should fit inside these two.
Just on that, Garry, got here 00, the P class. I don't know if that's going to come out there.
All right.
Is that similar in terms of size? It's a relatively small 060 and 00 gauge. I wondered, with the Terrier, something that would work on the P class. Hatton's produced that. It's now been redone, I think, by Zacura Scale, perhaps. And I wondered, would it be one that would work for you?
It could well do. As I say, without having the body and everything in front of me, there is a good possibility of it. I'm not going to say I'm going to do a lot of these now, because I've got lots of other things to get on with, not just railway items either. I mentioned the Pug to go on the new 040, but I've got no idea of who will be making any 3D bodies for things like that.
Yeah, we'll have a look and see what we can find. We'll see what might be hiding out there online somewhere.
perhaps Peter Smith from Willington Dean, who did the Doc Shunter for the 08. But anyway, let's get back on. I want to talk about the HSTs.
That's exactly where I was going next. You've got two new HSTs. You've got the Virgin, you've got the GNER. Now, Garry, this is not going to trouble you in the least because it's not your thing, but there's they're too modern, but also there's no sound options. You're a non-sound man, but any thoughts, either Chris, maybe this year, why are they stepping away from sound, or what's your thoughts on that?
I promise you, this is only a theory. This is not something. This is not some piece of secret information that's given to me. I've got a feeling that, that we may see more locos coming forward that are DCC ready, and less of them with the sound with actually sounds fitted. There's a couple of reasons I think for that. One, it is quite expensive for manufacturers to do. Second, there is their experience of the old, let's call it the old market, or the other scales that have been around for ages. Though the DCC ready locos are the ones that sell because people make their own mind up, and a lot of them do their own installation. Now, of course, that is something that may seem a little bit terrifying for the new people that are being attracted to our scale, but I see it as almost a sort of an obvious kind of progression that Hornby brought a bunch of people in, introduced them to sound and DCC, but now you might have to get more involved in the hobby yourself and install your own decoder and upload your own sound file if that's what you wish to do, and that might have a ramification. That might mean that other people choose other people's systems. They might use DCC concepts or ESUs or whatever. Or Gauge Masters, because a lot of those decoders are the same pin configurations but considerably smaller. So and people have already been using them. For example, in the 08, they've been using like DCC concepts AE 6-pin to go in there. So I think it's almost like a natural progression that we're going to see less DCC fitted rather than more DCC fitted. And that's only my own gut feeling and my own experience of the hobby, the wider hobby, that is. It may not be what new people to the scale want to hear. And whether or not that kind of pans out in the future, I don't know. For me, I would think it would make sense to continue to offer sound fitted sets, because that's a very good introduction to the whole bag.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Chris. I think the sound fitted sets idea, that makes a lot of sense. If they are stepping away from making or offering sound fitted, clearly they can do the sound fitting, but if they're stepping away from offering it as a standard, I think it'll be good to see them acknowledge that at the design process more and more, and have clever solutions to make the chipping of a loco as simple as a plug-in thing.
Do you mean like how Kurosco done with their 37s? Where you flip up a panel on the roof, but also like Hornby done with their coronation.
Like Hornby did with the cold load on the Duchess. Yeah. I think that hadn't been done before on a steam that I'm aware of. I've seen, I think, is it Daypol or someone tend to have opening fireboxes, smoke boxes that you can stick a decoder in the front. That probably it works, but I think the lift off coal is even easier. So if they're not going to do this, I would like to think that would be informed at the design stage. And they've clearly got extremely capable designers just now. I mean, Sam particularly seems to be, flying. His designs are very well appreciated. And I hope that would come through. I think we should not overly stress this. If folk are watching this and you're newish to the hobby, you've got your stuff and you've considered adding a chip, or you've bought stuff with chips before already installed and you're not sure what doing it yourself, it really, even what's there just now, isn't particularly difficult. If you can wire a plug, you can take off the local body, and you can put a chip in, and you can take it apart together. It's
I
not.
would say if you could plug in a plug.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It really isn't a major thing, but let's keep it as simple as possible, as I would suggest. Sorry, Garry. Yes, your own input here.
Right. Obviously, with me not being involved in DCC, I don't really know a lot about this as such, but you're talking about the HSTs here. Could it be that if Hornby produce a sound set with HST, it's the cost of it because they need two decoders, one for the trailing car as well as the power car? It's just a guesswork on my part.
I think you're right, Garry. That adds a huge amount to the cost for them to manufacture, but also it adds an extra lump of investment for the modeler, whereas the modeler can, it is quite expensive to add this stuff, and I think you really need to be, I don't know, committed to it, and really have to be conscious about that decision, particularly these days when we're looking at our budgets. But I think you're right. I think that it's very nice for us to have a £55 decoder pre-fitted in the loco, whether steam or diesel, but that's almost got to be done. I think that's got to be almost done at cost by Hornby. And so if they are going down the road of, well, they've stepped away from privatisation, haven't they? And if they are now looking at themselves and having more control over what they're having a look at their shrinkage, maybe that's what their new owners or new investors are looking at, then maybe that's one of the things that's having some pressure put upon it. But again, I'm pontificating. I'm just guessing. It might be just as simple as the fact as that they haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah. As long as we can look for reasons that aren't there. But that's what this is. This is all us just pontificating to some extent. And on that theme of pontificating, they've gone down the line of Southern Railway. They have not satisfied a Great Western itch to scratch it. Any thoughts on that? Did that outrage you? Did that delight you? Where did you go with that? Yes, we'll start with you, Garry.
I personally look at GWR as the bottom of the four. My preference is for Eastern Region, then LMS or LM as you call it, along with the Southern, joint second and third. But then the Great Western is way behind with me. And I think that's how things might be changing. And maybe Hornby's looked at that. I don't know. It's just a guess on my part. But obviously, there are people on Facebook and they're complaining, why haven't I got the... Well, as I keep saying to them, they can't please everybody. And no matter what they do, somebody is not going to be happy they haven't got what they want. And it's just a fact of life.
I think I've got a theory, Greg.
Go on, then we always enjoy your theories.
I reckon that very early days, early doors, Garry went down to Margate and he put the screws on them and said Great Western Railway's last, or I'm going to light this place up.
He's got that slightly thuggish nature to him, does he?
Well, I did actually go down to Margate around the factory in the 70s. I went on one of the works tours. Yes, I did go down there, but I certainly didn't make any mention of not doing GWR.
So you don't have the Great Western mob coming to picket your house and throw stones through your windows and stuff, so that's fine. So it's not our fault. If you like the GWR, none of us three were responsible in any way, shape, or form. And I do have an affection for the GWR. I must be honest. I find some of their locos very attractive, but I don't have a particular affiliation to any region. I'll run anything.
Oh, I want to ask Greg a question. I want to ask Greg a question.
Oh no!
I thought off camera you had a conspiracy theory about this. Come on.
Are you trying to suggest that I would suggest that they may have awareness of something else going on that's causing them to leave the gap. That would never cross my mind, innocent person that I am. But it's certainly, we are, I think, optimistic in terms of the scale pollinating far beyond Margate. And if that is the case, then to see another manufacturer take up the Great Western would be quite an interesting move, I think. And they may know that. We don't know that. I certainly don't know that. But it did occur, at least as a possibility. I'm in two minds as whether I think that's a good thing or not, because I suspect that if Hornby takes something up, they're more likely to be able to produce things at some relative pace. I know it's not fast enough for everyone. It can't be. I suspect any other manufacturer jumping in and saying we're going to do the GWR stuff, you're on a long haul process before you get anything like a reasonable range of locos to run. So that leaves me a bit unsure as to whether I think that's a good thing or not. But if there was another manufacturer lurking around who was prepping GWR stuff in the wings, ready to swoop in, then fair play to them. There's an open door there to drive through if you want to. So who knows?
Well, I know something that I would buy, and all of them, and that would be the other 9 carriage HST you see around today, which is the Pullman Blue. On the one that's on doing the rail tours now. I think it's a stunning locomotive.
Yeah, I think that would actually, but maybe that's a loco. I mean, they've got the tooling. They'll get the HSTs are going to be in the range, I think, for the foreseeable, and the Pullman is an attractive halo sort of product, but not maybe one of the staples that need to be out there in the early days. So I'll be surprised if it doesn't come. Very surprised it doesn't come, but it doesn't need to come early. And we are still in the early days, I think, in fairness. Garry?
Talking of the HST as a Midland Pullman, I can appreciate it for a lot of people because that's the only thing that they've seen. But from my point of view, I was around when the originals came out in real life and when Triang, as it was then, brought theirs out. I actually saw one in blue livery in Leeds when Leeds United was playing one of the Bristol teams in a cup tie, and it was at Neville Hill Depot. And to me, the Midland Pullman is only the original. I cannot look at the HST one and try, in my mind, make that into a Midland Pullman. It's still an HST to me. So if that comes out, I certainly won't be getting that one.
That's not for you, Garry. You're going to give that a hard pass if that comes out. Okay, yeah. Great. Right. I want you to get out your old crystal balls a wee bit, chaps. As far as we can tell, things like the Normandy set, the CAD was shown, in fact, way back on the Model World TV program. They brought that out in 00. And lo and behold, appears in TT. Looking at what they've done in 00 more recently, is there something you can see there? You think, I wish they would bring that into their April Fool's shrinking booth. And hey presto, here's the TT. I looked through some of the things that have come out. There's other stuff it's not comprehensive at all, but I tried to get a range of different stuff, some of which won't appeal at least. The Coronation coaches were stunning piece of work, I think, as a relatively new thing. But away from rolling stock towards the actual locos, the Hush Hush, the Flirt, the Black 5, the Packets, the Sentinels, the APT, anything in that range, or anything you've thought yourself, right? That's what I would like to see shrunk down.
My top 2, but this is not I'm not going to talk about anything else, because actually I'm not even sure I should talk about anything, because I do know what's coming. So anything I say is possibly people are going to read something into it. But as a lot of people have already said, I'm going to say this one, which is obviously the 9F. But the reason why I'm so impatient to see a 9F is, and I've said this before on other channels on the podcast, is because I think that's going to be the standout loco that at shows people will look at and go, blimey, that looks as good as the O-gauge one. And it will,
because of the gauging.
Because of the gauging, because you can see down onto the wheels. There's not that you don't have the Garry will know the proper name from the mud guards covering them. You can see down, you can see through that gap under the boiler, and they will look tremendous. And so I'm looking forward to the day when a 9F eventually arrives, whether that's in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Garry, you're not going to argue with a 9F, are you?
No, no, but the nickname for those was a spaceship. And it's the reason being that you look down, because all you can see is this whole spaceship. Well, as Chris says, you look down there and you can see all the wheels, the gap between the wheels and the underneath of the boiler and everything. Yes, I would like a 9F, no problem. But with any steam, I would like any steam engine. Now, Martin did ask me this at Rails last year. Is there anything that I would like to see in TT120? And just at that time, they brought out the BR Standard 260 tender loco. And I said, that's one that I would like. Any of the BR standards are good. But for me, they already had then the drawings, the plans, the CAD for that small 260. And so that would be something that could do.
Excellent.
Overall, really, I suppose the two that stand out that should be there is a Black 5 and probably a B1, because they both had the same capabilities, really, haulage-wise and things. They were both universal. The Black 5 probably went further afield than what the B1 did, but they'll be both great mixed traffic locos.
Okay. Is a Ginty superfluous given the J50 and the Terrier?
I think so now. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's almost kind of something that I don't think we'll see that for a few years now, because having three small locos in the range has probably nailed it on the head. And I think as Garry was just suggesting there, standard, a good size tank wagon that as mixed freight, that's got to be the way that a lot of people want it to go. I don't know whether that's the way they're going to go or not. But.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, from my point of view, I can understand where Chris is coming from, but then you're going to get people say, well, what do I do for LM region? I've got a Duchess, but no tank engine for it, which is where the Ginty came in. And the Ginties went further afield. We did have them in York, and they were also down on the Somerset and Dorset. So it's a question of how are they going to play the regions here?
Yeah.
The J50 was there to match the A3, the A1s, the A4s. The Terrier is probably getting ready for a bigger Southern region engine. I don't know. But with the Duchesses, anybody doing the LM region, they're going to be missing out with the little tank engine. But again, like Chris said,
I think Gary's thinking of this as a sensible and prototypically correct model maker. And I don't know if that's the way that Hornby are thinking about it. I think they're possibly still looking at a type of loco and what's popular in that type of loco, rather than, and also to a certain extent matching the rolling stock they've got. But I think they're just looking around at popular locos in different wheel configurations as much as they are looking at a prototypical or matching for a region. At this stage, I think we're still in that honeymoon period of shiny kit disease, where something turns up and we go, "Ooh, that's pretty." I'm having one of those. I'm pre-ordering one of those, and I think that's where they just come out, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's still early days here because those two new locos yesterday, they're running locos number 9 and 10 that Hornby are producing TT120. The HSTs and the other 66 and things, they're all models that have had just re-liveries. So we are actually only up to 10 different locos yet. And when you think there's a heck of a lot of locos around, or were.
Yeah. There's certainly plenty more to come, and plenty more scope for Hornby and anyone else ready to jump in to really take that forward.
Actually, pertinent. I've just had a WhatsApp notification come up on my screen from Martin Weaver, who's answered the question.
Is this to be included in the edit or not?
No, you can stick it in here. It confirms the set has radius 3, not radius 2.
So you were wrong.
I'm sure they told me it was radius 2, and then the information I had, I couldn't have anything to check against. But never mind.
I'm actually quite surprised at that. I've got to be honest. I thought it would make a lot more sense to do the radius 2 so that you can then, loving this little set, you want to expand it. Okay, we'll get the next one up, and then the track work will work together. If you get a second set on top of that one, your track work is incompatible.
I think the theory behind it is that if all the sets are radius 3, all the sets can be developed with the track pack system.
Aye. Okay. Interesting. I'm so surprised at that. Okay.
But I think it's dull. I think it would be a lot more fun to have a little diddy set.
Yeah. That's interesting. Very interesting, because there was various pontifications on the forum about that, and people actually doing the measurements, trying to see what would work and what wouldn't. And so there you go. Now we know. That's it, confirmed. You heard it here first. It is it's a radius 3 in the new starter set.
Yeah, but it did also say in that WhatsApp text that it will obviously negotiate radius 1.
Yes. I mean that an 040 can't not negotiate radius 1, unless there's something gone somewhere severely wrong. So I thought it was interesting as well that they didn't choose in the starter set to give us the 001 has kind of very child-friendly magnetic couplings, if I remember right. Whereas this one has the standard TT couplings. Sorry, Gary, I interrupted you there. You're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going back to the launch yesterday of new items, and I was going to talk about wagons. Okay. And I quite like the idea that going to do triple packs as well now.
Yes.
I think that's a good one. Obviously, for me, the tank wagons are ideal, but these people who run the merry-go-round trains, they're getting... I think there was 2 different sets of 3 of the hopper wagons as well as a triple pack. Yeah.
I was also very pleased to see the triple packs. I've got to be honest. I was a bit disappointed there wasn't more restocking of existing wagons in triple packs as well. Would have been great. But the fact that they're moving towards triple packs, my suspicion is Hornby have been somewhat caught out, because they'll probably have based the original orders on the proportions of a 00 modeler of rolling stock to locomotives. But because in TT you can model much more realistic train lengths, suddenly the proportions change, and the modeler wants a lot more rolling stock relative to the number of locos than that would otherwise have been the case. And I think that gives, that's my, I don't know if that's right or not, that gives me some rationale as to why the rolling stock has been tight, and why therefore the Pico 7 planks have just been, reliveried and reliveried, and people keep buying them because they're looking to fill up the gaps that are there.
There's only so many of those. I mean, some people really like to collect them, but that's a few hundred people like to collect them. It's not a few thousand, and that's.
Yeah, it's going to hit a ceiling at some point. It must do, and then you're going to have new stuff to come through.
Yeah, Pico has to take. They don't have to. I don't understand why they wouldn't want to take advantage of this current lull in era 3, 4, 5, whatever wagon, and bring us something new. It's not as if they don't have a really good back catalogue.
Yeah, the scope is there. Scope is there. Right, chaps, I think we've had a really good hour or so, and thank you for your time. But before we disappear, last thoughts, comments, anything else you want to talk about? Garry, I was going to chase yourself up about anything of what you've seen of the rolling stock as well as of the locomotives. You thought, right, that chassis, like the chassis of the new wagons behind the starter set, for example, something you might do with that. Have you looked at anything along these lines?
No, those, to me, I've heard one or two people complaining about them because they say they don't look anything like, but until you get them in your hand, you just don't know. And to me, I think there probably is a possibility that you just put them in a rake and who'll be able to tell? You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's the chassis from the 21-ton mineral wagon, because it looks as though it's a slightly longer wheelbase than the normal ones. But it does have moulded buffers and things, I think. But at the end of the day, they are made, as you say, for a price. And I don't think they look too bad at all.
No, exactly. Stick a bit of coal in, do a bit of weathering on them. You'd be hard, and have them moving, be hard pressed to spot them. For the three of us, we're all coming around to, I'm guessing, well, I started you guys both started your channels before me. My second birthday, I think, is Saturday or Sunday. Which is the 14th? Is it Saturday or Sunday?
Monday.
Monday. So Monday is my channel's second birthday. Or it's the second birthday from when I first uploaded a TT120 video, right? And I know you guys have been around a few months before then doing stuff. But can we have a few moments to talk about how we feel about our own personal journeys? Greg, you want to start with yours?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks. Mac Trains has been going, and it's certainly been a surprise to me, I got to be honest, that I'm as involved in the YouTube side of it. That was never a plan. I enjoy doing it, as the truth. I wouldn't do it if I didn't. Our first video, as many know, I uploaded was really just to get something off my chest, because I was fed up of hearing people criticizing Hornby for their TT120 stuff when it hadn't even come out. It just been announced. Nothing else had happened. They just announced, and there was people throwing all sorts of, to my mind, utterly spurious arguments. I don't mind disagreeing with people at all. I do quite a lot, as long as someone actually has a reason for their position. But when it's just throwing things out there for no good reason, it got me going enough to actually start something. So that was when I began, and lo and behold, it got quite a lot of views. That was in the past. That's done, and then I put up a few little things of how I began, and it's gone from there. So I've now tipped over 1,000 subscribers, which astonishes me. But thank you to everyone who does watch. And the comments are what I actually do it for, I've got to be honest. I think that interaction with people, and some emails come in as well, that's great, because I'm quite isolated geographically. There's not a lot of model railways happening up this part of the world. So this is my model railway club, and that's probably why I do it, to be quite honest. So thanks for the opening. I hadn't thought of that before, so thanks, Chris.
I started with YouTube quite a few years ago, when I was doing 3-rail, and most of it was Hornby Dublo, and I built a 3-rail layout with Pico track, but it was all 3-rail, and most of it was Hornby Dublo, and I was doing a lot of what they call the never was's, putting different bodies, whether it was Hornby Triangle or a 3D body, onto Hornby Dublo chassis that were 3-rail. I was 3-railing Triangle chassis, and Railway Modeler actually were looking at wanting to do an article on it, but by then I'd stopped, and I was starting doing the TT before the 120 come. So I've even uploaded some of my O-gauge videos, because a few years ago I still got the branch line from that large O-gauge layout, and that's been to a couple of shows, and so I took some videos there. So I've used it for anything and everything for quite a few years now, not just with the 120, but obviously a lot more of it is on there now because I just do a lot more with it.
Yeah, yeah. For me, much the same as Greg, I kind of got involved with it because well, it was actually my son's idea, but I didn't really realize how much I was going to enjoy it, how much it was going to become part of the hobby for me. And it's been a fantastic opportunity to meet lots of different people, to get to talk to people at shows. When I first came across Garry on the forums, he seemed like a bit of a grumpy bum. But when I met him at a show, we got on fine. And all of that kind of stuff. And that's been really positive. Something that I really want to highlight to people who are watching this, if they've got to the end of this video, they're not been bored by it.
That's a big if.
Yeah, is the vital role that manufacturers have told me people like us are have in this hobby these days, where so much stuff is done via social media, so much news is spread by social media, and those manufacturers who have done their numbers or who are looking at whether or not they're going to go into TT120, they do research and they want to look and see, and they try to talk to the retailers that they supply other scales with. How's that getting on? How big's your market? Yada yada yada. But they also have a look on social media, look at Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And YouTube is, I think, probably the biggest indicator. So what I want to get across, and you'll hear me bang on about this for months and months ahead now, is that if you are a subscriber to Peachy's channel, to my channel, to Peachy, but you don't subscribe to Greg's and you don't subscribe to Garry's, you don't have to like these two. Just subscribe to them, and turn off the notifications. Likewise, if you're one of the blue-faced massive from above the wall who only watch Greg, and you don't particularly like listening to these Sassenachs banging on, subscribe to our channels and take the notification off. And also, if you're proper old school who don't like DCC and you don't like modern image, but so you only subscribe to Garry, subscribe to me and Mac's channels as well. And yet again, take off the notifications, because what's important is those manufacturers see that this scale is popular and has subscribed followers, because it's the only indicator that they can see. You know, we get to see our own data about views and hours that are watched and stuff, but they don't get to see that stuff. The hard fact is they'll see whether or not you've got X amount of subscribers. And that's the important thing that we need to get across to people, and the fact that subscriptions don't cost any money. We don't make any more money out of those subscriptions, yada, 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 all that stuff. That is all very true. What it does do is it's a signifier, an indicator for those manufacturers about the fact that there are people out there who want things, who want new things from these manufacturers, and they want these manufacturers to get involved.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you. And just to echo that, absolutely, please do subscribe. Look at Garry's channel, look at Chris's channel, and get involved in these things. My intention when I got TT first, because most of my stuff was 00, was get a wee shelf layout, get the await, make a wee shunting thing, and that would be my TT itch scratched, and it's kind of gone from there. So get involved. I think we've had a great chat. Thank you guys very much for your time. Thank you for the output you have, because I think it's fair to say there's a great variety between the three outputs for Garry's, Chris's, and my own. There's some overlap, of course, but for the most part, there's a huge variety out there. And I think that's to the good of the scale and the hobby. And I also thank you to Hornby. I think what you produced yesterday as a reveal was really excellent. Yes, there are gaps. We realise that. There are some folk who will be a bit disappointed because of this wasn't done or that wasn't done. But the clear commitment, once again, from Hornby to TT120 is evident. And the quality of what's been produced is also evident. The testing will be when we get in our hands and so on, and we'll do that testing when we get them. But what's been shown so far gives us, I think, every confidence that it's going to go really from strength to strength. So last words, chaps, and then Shirio, if you'll do that. Chris first, and then Garry.
The future's bright. The future's TT.
Can't say much more than that. I love the scale. It's great. And thanks very much, Hornby, for bringing it out.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe if you haven't. Do like, and then comment. We get through all the comments. Always read the comments, and a bit of back and forth is great. Do look at the other guys' channels as well. Please subscribe to them. And we'll see you again soon. There's plenty more to come. It's a busy month, April. Thanks. Oh, Chris is on the move. Hang on. We lost him. No.
The phone fell down.
Oh dear. That's on record. That's going in the bloopers reel at the end.